All right, well, welcome everyone. Happy to have you here for this very exciting conversation with Ken, whom I'll let introduce yourself in a moment. But this was a session that he hosted at the News Philanthropy Summit last month here in Philadelphia. Um, and now it was such a well-received session. Everybody was very excited about it. So we wanted to invite Ken to do it again for folks who wanted to experience it again, but also for folks who didn't get a chance to attend the summit, who may want to experience this conversation. So with that, I'm going to let Ken lead us through this talk. Thank you for being
Awesome.
here.
Thanks, everybody. I'm always excited to do this presentation. I love having this conversation. To get this out of the way, folks ask me every time, is this a photo I took? It is not. I have no idea where this is. It's just the gayest stock photo I could find for Pride Month, and that's what we're going with. So really proud of that. So this is our shameless self-promotion for Newsrooms workshop, but it's also our building your brand identity workshop. It's also increasing nonprofit donations workshop, increasing subscriptions workshop. It's definitely a change the world workshop, and I really do believe that. And it's for me explaining to your parents what you do workshop, and it's become very useful in that way for me. And I can see the chat, so if folks have stuff in the chat, I will be able to see it. Folks who've done anything with me ever before know that I always start the same way every single time. And I'm going to fly through, I'm going to move at a little bit of a more brisk pace than I would normally do because we want to get everything in there. I use a whole set of programming called The Art of Hosting, and I have a whole separate workshop on that. And if anybody ever wants to talk about the art of hosting, the art of hosting is this whole pantheon of programming that is open source, which means free. And it's basically, can we please stop having meetings about having meetings? Can we please move the needle forward on actual change? And can we please stop hiring consultants when the expertise is already in the community? And there's all of these different methods, and it's completely a cult. I'm in it. I love it. And these are two of the methods of the cult. So the first are the four principles. Whoever shows up are the right people to be here. Whoever's here is here. There are people that are not here. Why are we talking about the people that are not here? They're legit not here. Whatever we end up talking about is what we needed to talk about. Whenever we start, it was the right time. That's when we needed to start. And whenever we're done, we're done. I will have you out of here on time, I promise. But the big thing for our time together is that the law of 2 feet. If you find yourself in a place where you are not contributing or learning, move somewhere else where you can. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean physically moving, though I have seen people in these workshops all the time say, I'm going to get up and move. Like, I love sitting with my back in a corner and I can see the whole room. That's where I need to be. I will move if my back is to a door. So maybe it's physically, right? But for the most part, of course, what we're talking about here is emotionally, is pedagogically, is you thinking about what you need to think about. I'm not there in your space to make what I'm saying work. Most of you do not know me. Some of you do, but most of you do not know me. So we don't have that level of trust yet. And yet I am asking you to trust me that I am going to give you stuff that will work for you. You just might have to do a little bit of translation. Okay. You just have to come along with me. So a little bit about me. My mother requires that anytime I do a presentation, there be a picture of me at my bar mitzvah. So this is the requisite picture of me at my bar mitzvah. The short story of me and my background, just to get to know me, is that I very kind of accidentally ended up a dean of students when I was 25 years old. I was a dean of students for 10 years, and then I burnt out epically, and I became a tenured professor of education. About 6 years ago, it'll be 6 years ago tomorrow, we founded the Buckeye Flame. And I'll tell you about the Buckeye Flame in a second, but it's to the point where my journalism, I have now given back my tenure, and I'm going to be piloting out what it is to do one full-time job instead of two full-time jobs. And I hear it's amazing, and I can't wait to find out. The Buckeye Flame. The Buckeye Flame stands as Ohio's only LGBTQ plus newsroom. The Buckeye Flame is one of only a handful of nonprofit LGBTQ plus newsrooms in the country, and we're one of only a handful of, regardless of financial models, statewide LGBTQ plus newsrooms in the country. We are doing this work here in a state that does not have any legal protections for LGBTQ plus people in the areas of housing, public accommodations, and employment. So I can be fired in Ohio for being gay. I can be evicted by my cats for being gay. I think sometimes they want to do that. And I can be kicked out of a restaurant for being gay. All of that is legal here in Ohio, all while our legislature is passing bill after bill to restrict the lived experience of LGBTQ plus people. And so for that reason, the Buckeye Flame is doing vital and integral work. And I tell anyone who will listen, the Buckeye Flame is the most important thing I've done in my life to date. And as if Francisco has already seen my slides, which I know he has not, we also do have a podcast. Our podcast is called This News is So Gay. It exists as the only LGBTQ plus reporters roundtable that we know out there. Basically, we say it's Meet the Press, but it's a lot gayer. It's very, very enjoyable. So if you're looking for a new podcast, please add This News is So Gay to what it is that you do. And we can send out these slides. Do not feel pressured to get all of this. I will say, and we'll talk about this at the end, if you are not following the Buckeye Flame, I beg of you, follow us on social media, the Buckeye Flame, and subscribe. It's free. You get one email a week. We'll talk about that later on Thursday mornings at 7:15, and all will be well. So here's the deal. This particularly works, our time together, if you think of something that you want to promote. Is it a new podcast? Is it your newsroom in general? It may be a little bit more specific, but a new newsroom, that can work. Is it a new vertical? Is it a new newsletter? Is it a fundraising drive? Is it an event? Is it something that has nothing to do with journalism? You're like, I have a new band, and so I want to get my new band out there. That's awesome. Nobody's going to know. You can use this for that. But I am telling you, our time together is particularly helpful if you actually think of something and fix it in your mind. You will see a lot of superheroes on these slides. I am a superheroes nerd. If there are other superhero nerds, let me know. The correct answer is Marvel. I'm going to just say that right now. So think of something. So let's get into it. Right this second, someone is not doing something that you want them to do. They're not reading your content. They're not donating. They're not listening to your podcast. They're not going to see your band. They are not doing something that you want them to do. And I will always start here with the poet laureate of my home state of New Jersey, John Bon Jovi. And I'm obsessed with this quote. I use it all the time. Tell me in the chat, real quick hits, how do we humans feel about change? How do humans feel about change? Give me some quick emotions of how we humans feel about change. Fear, scared, I love it. Hate it, terrified, anxiety. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is counseling 101. So boo, I just like boo, right? Amazing. Thank you all. We do not like change. We are not predisposed to it. Even if something sucks, we'll keep doing the thing that sucks because the unknown thing might suck more. Even if something is bad, right? You can be driving and your app tells you, do not go this way anymore. There's horrible traffic. You're going to be late, but go this way. And if we don't know that other way, we'll say, you know what? Why don't we just keep going the way that we know, even though we're being told it's better the other way. I start with this because it's important to acknowledge that we are not, as humans, predisposed to change. And so we have to go into this work knowing that, yes, someone is not doing something that you want them to do. Again, not reading your content, downloading, opening the newsletter. We love those open rates. Maybe they're not clicking on the ads in the newsletter, which we love when they do that because it helps get advertisers. We have to overcome humans' resistance to change. And I just want to start with that. Okay? Here we go. We're going to keep going. We're going to be moving so fast. So we're going to talk about the kryptonite. Before we get into shameless self-promotion and how to actually do it, I want to talk about the things that are holding us back from doing it. And some of you submitted questions in advance and they were amazing. I will always start with the emotional part. Okay. I am not a counselor. That is not what my PhD is in. So if you're like, wow, that was amazing counseling, we are not insured for that here at Lenfest. So please do not bill us for that. Well, let me just ask you this in the chat. If I say to you, go do some shameless self-promotion, go do it right now, go promote, give me some emotions that invokes in you. How do we feel about doing shameless self-promotion? This is one of my favorite part when the words start rolling in. How do you feel about it? No shame would be a good thing. I love highly recommending it. Who the hell do you think you are? That's amazing. Awkward, resistant, amazing. It's hell, it's discomfort. Okay, here's the deal. Those words are going to keep coming in. Yay, Francis, Tony loves it. Okay, I can give you all the tools in the world, and I'm going to give you some really helpful tools, and I really believe that they are helpful. But if you are psyching yourself out, none of this works, right? First of all, if someone calls you shameless, I usually ask this question, but I want to move a little faster. Like, is someone saying something positive or negative when they call you shameless? They're saying something negative, which is hilarious because shameless literally means without shame. And yet somehow we have decided that doing shameless self promotion or being shameless is a negative thing. And that's actually not even what the word means. We have been conditioned, many of us, and in particular, women and historically marginalized populations have been conditioned to not take up space. And so I love seeing that, Maddie, right? To take up space means, this is awkward and it's uncomfortable. And who did that? You're being boastful, right? We need to know that there are any number of people out there who do not have these emotional barriers and they belong to majority demographics, and I will just leave it there, right? There are some folks who just do not hesitate at all to take up space. So if you're like, all right, I want to post another article on Facebook, but we just posted one an hour ago, and I don't want to take up that much space, and people are going to think it's called the ladder of imprints. You keep climbing up it when none of that was actually true, but you will psych yourself out. We start with the emotional part because we just have to acknowledge that it's there. Okay. I love that. Elizabeth, we're already seeing change. I have this conversation. I was just telling my colleagues at Lenfest, I do this presentation. I'm actually at the point where I'm doing this presentation. This is the second time this week. So I have this conversation a lot. I cannot tell you how many times I have a conversation with someone who's promoting something and I have no idea what that thing is. You need to have an actual thing that you are promoting. What is the thing? Can we wrap our hands around it? Well, it doesn't have to be physical, but it needs to be well defined, which we'll talk about in a second. You need to have measurable goals. A shameless self promotion cycle means absolutely nothing if you did not develop goals. And this applies to all contexts, right? So when I went on my first book tour, I was we'll talk about that in the next slide. I would put a post up on Facebook about the book, right? What's my goal for people to buy the book? Me putting up a post on Facebook about my book, the number of people who like it is different than the number of people who share it, which is different than the number of people who click on the link, which is different than the number of people who buy the damn book. All of those are valid, right? But you have to decide beforehand, what is it you're going for? I said this to the group on Tuesday because they were about to go into a networking event and they said, well, what do we do with shameless self-promotion there? You have a measurable goal. You decide before the networking event, and it might seem like I'm super comfortable with networking events. I am what's called an extroverted introvert. I can flip the switch when I have to, and then I need to go sleep for a while. So I don't love networking events, but I go in with a goal. I'm going to give out my business card to 5 people. I'm going to set up 3 informational interviews. I'm going to get 4 people subscribed to the Buckeye Flame, whatever it might be. Because then after the event, if I have a measurable goal, I'm able to say, oh, okay, wait, that was successful. As opposed to normally when you say someone, how was that? It was okay. The food was okay. You could even have measurable goals about the food. That would be weird. But you need to have a measurable goal for your promotion, whether it's podcast downloads, whether it's shout outs, whether it's collabs, whatever it might be, there has to be a measurable goal. I will also caution you away from, I know so many of our newsrooms are doing events. I'm not cautioning you away from events. Events are great. I'm cautioning you away from the only metric that you are using for success being how many people showed up. I will take a book event with 10 people where 9 of them bought a book over 100 people where 2 people bought a book. if my measurable goal is selling books. If it's creating brand awareness, maybe that's a little bit different. If it's having people post on social media, maybe the 100 is more helpful. But if my goal is selling books, I'll take the smaller event where everyone bought one as opposed to the bigger one. So just think a lot about if your measurable goal is solely how many clicks you're getting, there are different types of engagement there. And stop me if you have any questions. I'm going to keep going. Fast clip, already 15 minutes here. You need to know who your defined audience is. So on that first book tour, I had 2 book stops back to back. The first night was at a hippie healing retreat in Vermont, and the second night was at my parents' synagogue in New Jersey. So what's my measurable goal? To sell books. But you can sure as heck bet that I read a very different passage to my parents and their friends than I did at the hippie healing retreat in Vermont. You have to know who your audience is. When we're out there talking about the Buckeye Flame, I have a very different conversation with folks if I'm sitting in an LGBTQ plus space than, or at a Pride, right? It's Pride, and we have two Pride tablings every single weekend, than I would at a different event where I don't know that it is an LGBTQ plus specific event. If you're not varying your message based on the audience, then you're not getting your message across as clearly as you could, right? I'm not sitting there explaining to an LGBTQ plus audience what coming out means. Whereas I can't tell you, there's no bigger reader of the Buckeye Flame than my mom. She reads every single article. We've had to have many conversations about some of the words that we use in the Buckeye Flame, and her learning curve is off the charts. So we talk in different ways depending on the audience. You have to know who else is in your space. I love when newsrooms go at this work or journalists saying, we are the only ones doing this. We'll talk about that way later at the end. Be careful of saying only or first. Be very careful that it's going to come up later. But the Buckeye Flame is not the only nonprofit newsroom in Cleveland. Sorry, we're in Cleveland. And we are not the only LGBTQ plus newsroom in the country. Now, we are, to our knowledge, until someone tells me I'm lying, the only LGBTQ plus newsroom in Ohio. I can't say that unless I know who else is in my space, unless I know how other people are talking about themselves. Lenfest is not the only journalism support organization in the country, right? We know that. There was nothing negative that I just said. Some people get offended by, wait, what do you mean there's others? There are literally others. That's okay. You need to know how they are describing themselves so that you are not describing yourself in exactly the same way. People get very insulted by this slide, which I enjoy immensely. I work with writers all the time. So if you're ever trying to sell your book, get an agent, work with a publishing company, they're going to ask you, what are the other comp titles? Who else is writing in your space? You know who doesn't get a contract? The people who say, no one, no one, I'm the only one. I'm the only one doing this. That's literally not true, right? You're not the only writer. You're not the only historical fiction writer, whatever it might be. And that's okay. They just want to know what realm you're in so that there's a frame of reference and then you define yourself more. You cannot differentiate yourself unless you know what others are doing. You have to do this in a way that is authentic to you. I tell this story probably too frequently because I'm going to get found out on it, but I went to a fundraising gala for a nonprofit in Ohio recently. And during intermission of the gala, the development director went up on stage and gave a speech. I have heard the most amazing things about this development director. She is incredible at writing grant applications and sending emails and all these different amazing development things, has had incredible success for this organization, right? What she maybe shouldn't have done was speak in public. And I had this conversation with her after. I'm like, that's not your thing, right? She said, that was horrible. I'm terrified of it. Great. Don't do that. If you're not a data person, don't be the data person. Find that support. If you are not a stand-up comic, don't put yourself out there as a stand-up comic. I have story after story in the 3-hour version of this workshop, which we're not doing now. I cannot tell you how many stories I have of when I have failed because I've strayed from my authenticity. If it's not what your newsroom does, like we are just not set up right now to do events. We don't have the capacity. We're just not set up for it. So if we throw ourselves into an event, it's just not what we do right now. It's not going to go well at this current moment. So it's acknowledging this is where we are right now. This is our authenticity. It doesn't mean we don't introduce new products, but you have to do it in a way. I will also say, and this is coming up increasingly, this also, actually, I'm going to relate it to a different side because it's coming up right here. There's also the piece about a sense of urgency. In order to get people to change, there has to be a sense of urgency. There has to be a relative advantage. Why would it help you to listen to this podcast? Why would it help you to read the Buckeye Flame? Well, because the Buckeye Flame is putting out information for the LGBTQ plus Ohio community in a way that other newsrooms just are not. We have a great sensitivity, education, and depth where we're not dead naming anyone. We're not both sidesing an issue that doesn't have two sides, right? We're able to explain to people very quickly what the sense of urgency is. I keep adding things when I do this presentation, so I haven't talked about this ever. There's also the flip side of not yelling fire in a crowded theater. We are seeing more and more fundraising appeals that say things like, we need $5,000 by midnight. Why? Tell me why. Can you not make payroll? Can you, like, if there's an actual emergency, label the emergency. If your sense of urgency of trying to cut through the noise is not authentic, right? Everything is okay. That is going to come back to haunt you, right? That's the boy who cried wolf. So we want to be really careful in explaining to people the relative advantage of why should you listen to this podcast? Why should you open our newsletter? Why should you come to this event? But not doing it in a way that isn't authentic. Okay. Imposter syndrome is a very real thing. I know imposter syndrome is a very real thing. I have it. I sit in a place where I was in a conference a few weeks ago. Actually, let's be honest. I was in one of a Lenfest space where I was surrounded by journalists that I was so intimidated by, and I did not say a word. And I'm sitting there thinking, I was the National LGBTQ plus Journalist of the Year, and I did not feel like I could speak at all. Right? Imposter syndrome is real. It affects so much of us. So many of us, I don't have the solution except this part. This is the only part that has helped me. There are a ton of people who do what you do. It's a two-part sentence. It'd be amazing if it was just that part and then I left and you're just depressed. There are a ton of people who do what you do. Okay? But you are the only one who does it in the way that you do it. There are a ton of people who do what you do. You are the only one who does it in the way that you do it. And this is just about articulating what that way is. And finally, in our kryptonite section, we have to, so everyone's moving at a really fast clip. We're trying to always look for the next thing. When we're talking to someone, they're looking for the next thing, right? And so we want to make people pause. When we use words like only and just, we only just launched, we just do this, we only serve this population, we just do this in Ohio, whatever it might be, we are giving the listener an opportunity to move on to the next thing because we are diminishing what it is that we do. For some reason, I'm hearing more and more that this is the one slide that everybody remembers, and I'm fine with that. You now are not going to be able to unring this bell. You are going to hear probably others, possibly yourself, use the words only and just in a diminishing way in a conversation. And yet again, the research tells us these words are disproportionately used by women and historically marginalized populations. In that thank you, Elizabeth, right? And I do it, I have done it. By the way, I did it mid-workshop the other day, and then they started yelling at me. They're like, you said that slide. I'm like, okay, that's good. You were paying attention. I didn't do it on purpose, right? We cannot use words that diminish what we do because we are giving people the opportunity to move on to the next person. This is only a new thing for our newsroom. This is just a pilot program. You could say this is a pilot program that we're excited about. Don't use the words only and just. You're giving people the excuse to move on. That is our kryptonite. We're going to fly through real quick one more time. You need to have a thing. What are you promoting? You need to have actual measurable goals that you can articulate. You need to know who your audience is. You need to know what other people are doing in your space. You need to do it in the way that you do it. You need to have a sense of urgency. What would make people stop and realize why they should do what you're asking them to do? Imposter syndrome is a thing. We just have to acknowledge it. And you need to stop using words that diminish what it is that you do. I will pause here real quick before we move into the superpowers. Any questions so far? How is everyone doing? I'm very proud of you. I've never been this proud of you. We will keep going. I'm also texting my colleague in the newsroom next door saying, I need a power cord. Okay, there we go. Authenticity. So funny. Because I needed something else apparently to do with my life. I am now a certified spin instructor. So I'm teaching spin classes in Cleveland. And the other day, I was doing an exercise on the spin bike with my class in front of me, and I was struggling to count to 8. It was an 8 count, and I lost count. And the owner of the studio just happened to take the class, and she said, and the power cord came running, by the way. Thank you so much. The owner of the spin class was there, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Hannah, can I actually also ask you to plug this in for me too?" You also plug it in. The owner of the spin class said, "Oh my God, never admit to people that you messed up. Why? I didn't mess up and then quit the class. I messed up in my own authentic way and I kept going. It's okay, folks." Oh, spin doctor. Corey, I can't unsee that now. All right. We are back in. Thank you so much. And we're being charged. We're not going anywhere. Superpowers. Let's do it. So, a couple things. No, I'm here for it, Corey. You're good. A couple things that have really helped me out. One, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is particularly helpful for those of us who are struggling with burnout, which I struggle with enormously, especially when we have so many different products, or we're saying yes to too many things. And I have a slide on that coming up. What really helped me, I couldn't figure out what to take on and what not to take on, and what to say no to. And I had to really identify a narrative thread that connected every single thing that I do, right? I'm a professor, I'm teaching spin classes now. I am the editor of a nonprofit publication. I host burlesque shows here in Cleveland. What am I doing? I'm burning out. It really helped me to be able to identify and clearly articulate that my narrative thread is that I embrace storytelling for underrepresented communities. That connects everything that I do. And that enabled me to be able to say no to opportunities when I was able to say, oh gosh, that doesn't connect with my narrative thread. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. In fact, we're done spending time on this, but it's just a helpful concept that I want to put out there. Now to the real meat and potatoes. Elevator pitch. If you've done one before, I promise you haven't done as many as me. I do them constantly. And so it is helpful. If you've never done one before, we're going to run through it. You're going to see this slide 3 times. This is not theoretical. My students know I don't do theoretical I do applied theory. I need to be able to use stuff. Otherwise, I don't like talking about it. So this is not theoretical. If you've done this before, if you've never done it before, let me just run through it really quickly with you. There is a worksheet, free worksheet, tinyurl.com/elevator pitch, please. The idea with the elevator pitch is that how do we cut through the noise? We only have literally a minute of someone's attention, and that's being really generous, particularly with social media. How can we get information about our new thing or the thing that we're doing, whatever it might be? How can we get that out there to folks quickly, clearly, and compellingly? Quickly, clearly, compellingly. And there are 4 parts to an elevator pitch. Part 1. Oh, also, it's not theoretical. Part 1, introducing yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I have a conversation with someone about their amazing idea and they walk away. I have absolutely no idea who they were. I have no idea who they were. That means introducing your publication as well. That means, right, like not assuming that people know what it is that you all do, what it is that you're about. Well, everyone knows the Buckeye Flame. That's legit not true, right? So introducing yourself, doing some framing of like, this is who I'm with, Up until very recently, and I've been doing this presentation for many years, up until very recently, my own name was not in my slides. I wasn't even introducing myself to audiences through my own slides, right? So this should be the easy one, and yet it's on here because I cannot tell you how many times people are not introducing themselves. You need to be able to create that sense of urgency that we talked about, either identifying a void or an abundance, right? So with the podcast for us, a lot of the LGBTQ plus podcasts out there, they're either super fluffy and entertaining, but they don't have a lot of substance, or they're very substantive and they are snore inducing, right? Like they could just put you to sleep. And so for our podcast, for This News Is So Gay, we wanted to create something that was substantive, but personality driven and entertaining. That's both a void and an abundance. I did this workshop 2 weeks ago with someone who's writing a book about etiquette for social media. She identified the void as being there's a lack of respect on social media, or the abundance, there's an abundance of assholes on social media, right? Like you can identify it in either way, but there has to be some sort of sense of urgency. What is your newsroom? What void is that filling, or what abundance is that addressing? The podcast, your new band, whatever it might be, your new vertical, your new newsletter. What sense of urgency are you tapping into? It has to be one that you can articulate, because this is what gets people to buy in. And it can't just be that you're doing good work. Let me pause here. I hate this sentence, by the way, that's coming up. It should be that, wow, you're producing good work. People are just going to find it. And it actually doesn't work like that. I wish it did. Your podcast is amazing. People are just going to find it. Nope. Your new book is amazing. People are just going to find it. It doesn't work like that. There has to be some sort of sense of urgency that gets people to say, wait a second, this isn't the only podcast. I don't know if you all know this. There are actually tons of other podcasts out there. So what would make them want to download ours? There's a lot of other nonprofit newsrooms. There's a lot of other news to read, even about the same subject. How are we at the Buckeye Flame covering it differently? Well, we are LGBTQ plus journalists covering LGBTQ plus issues for an LGBTQ plus audience. Always, always Ohio based. We do not cover anything that isn't Ohio. And although I'm sure there's many lovely straight people in Ohio, that's not who's centered in our coverage. What is the sense of urgency? So if you establish your sense of urgency, so for us with the Buckeye Flame, maybe it's that there is a void of journalism being written by LGBTQ plus people, or there's an abundance of LGBTQ plus news coverage that has misinformation, right? That's a void, that's an abundance. And so you're presenting your solution, and your solution is the Buckeye Flame. Your solution is your podcast. Your solution is the newsletter. But it has to follow some sort of void or abundance that you can articulate. You're going to see that theoretical slide again. This is not theoretical. Okay? This should be just a couple words. Our solution is coming to this event. Our solution is reading our content daily. Our solution is donating to our nonprofit newsroom. Okay? But here's where everyone stops. You're like, all right, I introduced myself. There's a sense of urgency. I presented my solution. I'm going to walk away. But again, just because you presented a good solution doesn't make people do the thing. You actually need to ask people to do something specific. Social media posts should have click on this story, share on, these are actual verbs, share this story, donate. Folks are assuming that because they did a really strong pitch and presented a great solution, people are just going to do the thing that you want them to do. They might not. They might come up with something entirely different if you didn't direct them, ask them to do the thing. Now, the verb should be connected back to your measurable goal. Do you want people to buy the book? Ask people to buy the book, download the podcast, subscribe, rate and review. Those are all great things. Talk about us to 3 different people. It's one of my favorite slides to put out there. I charge people with saying, please, please talk about us talk about these pieces of legislation to 3 people who you think might not know about it. and then report back to them. You actually have to ask people to do something specific, not theoretically, actually. Introducing yourself, sense of urgency, present your solution, ask people to do something. There are different ways. By the way, new slide for you all. I haven't used this one, even on Tuesday. I also should have edited it, but we're making it work. Use this. Use it. Have your newsroom staff all fill out the elevator pitch sheet for a specific project. I can tell you that the elevator pitch worksheet for the podcast is what got us $32,000 from a local foundation to produce the podcast with a professional studio. It was because we boiled it down to this very tight, very succinct elevator pitch that we believed in. That's the authenticity part. You got something new that you want to introduce, have everyone working on it, fill that out. Those of you working with nonprofits, give all of your board members the elevator pitch worksheet, put them in isolation booths to have them fill it out, come back together, compare those sheets, and see if everybody says the same thing about what it is that your publication does. I can guarantee you there are some differences. But you need to know that. You need to know that. This is the vulnerable one. Ask your readers to fill it out. What would happen if you said you created a form for them to fill out an elevator pitch for your own publication? This is why we love listening sessions. So this is not theoretical. Do the elevator pitch for you so that you know that your team is on the same page, including your board, but ask others to fill it out for you so you have a sense how the community is reflecting on that. That is elevator pitch. I am telling you, I use this constantly. And it helps me articulate to people outside of my head, which are all of the people, what it is that we are working on. It also helps me get rid of some of the extraneous pieces and just focus in on this is the nugget of what I'm putting out there. Now, someone asked me this on Tuesday for the first time, which was amazing. What if you use AI to develop the elevator pitch? Okay, you can, but the idea behind the elevator pitch is it opens the door to another conversation. And so you should have words other than the elevator pitch. If that tone is not consistent with whatever you had AI create for your elevator pitch, then the authenticity falls apart. If you can't tell, I'm not the hugest AI user. We don't really use it at all. But I know that others are using it in ways that probably would benefit me if I learned more than I currently do. So use the elevator pitch. I got more. Some additional things I want you to think about. We're going to go through these. If you have not Googled yourself or your newsroom lately, I don't know. I'm in shock at how often people don't know what others are saying about them. Is your newsroom coverage? I mean, I Googled the Buckeye Flame yesterday. I didn't know that and we have a Google alert set up for our name, but it doesn't capture everything, that it came up in someone else's coverage. I had absolutely no idea. I actually didn't know that someone quoted us 2 weeks ago and said, the Buckeye Flame, the official student newspaper of Ohio State University. That is absolutely not who we are. And I wouldn't have known that. It didn't come up in my Google alerts. So you have to know what others are saying about you and look that up. You can certainly do that on social media as well. I'm kind of in shock that people don't know what others are saying about them. You really do need to search for yourself. Okay. Social media, I could do 3-4 hours on shameless self-promotion and social media. I will say this. People are looking for active accounts. If you have a social media account that you're not using so much right now, then you need to put up some sort of gone fishing sign. I tell students this all the time. Incoming students are going to be looking at clubs and organizations. And if they see that one of the clubs and organizations hasn't posted in a year and change, they're going to be like, well, that's not an active group. I'm not going to seek them out. Just put up a slide that says, we're gone for the summer. We're coming back in September. Or we're figuring out our TikTok strategy. Bear with us. Something that indicates that there's a reason that you have not been active on that particular platform. When we talked about this at Lenfest, I went a little extreme. I tend to think like, if we're totally not using this account, let's just get rid of the account. I don't think you should do that anymore. I've been reformed based on the feedback. Maybe putting something up says, hey, we just don't use this that much. You're seeing this a lot on X, right? A lot of the newsrooms that have stepped away from X didn't just step away. They didn't delete their account. They put up a post that says, this is just not the place to find us. Find us here. You want to not let someone think that you're not being active. That destroys shameless self-promotion. Okay, a few more. Pretty good. It's gonna be good. There is nothing that we do more than send emails. Nothing. I don't do anything more in my role as editor than send emails. There is not an email that you will ever receive from me that doesn't have my elevator pitch in the email. Every single email I send says, Ken Schneck, PhD, editor of the Buckeye Flame, subscribe, there's your verb, to the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom, donate to keep the fire burning bright, or something like that. I change it all the time, right? Does everybody click on that? Of course they don't. Do people click on that? I have the metrics that show that they do. Why are we wasting a shameless self-promotion opportunity with every single email that we send? Put the CTA, the call to action, in there. Okay. Thank you, Mary. Validating that one. Okay. There's no question. I can't think of a question that I get more from folks than nobody's supporting us. Nobody's consuming our content. No, the other newsrooms aren't supporting us. We're not getting donations. There's not like, right, based on the metrics, things are not happening. My question always back to them is, how often are you all out there supporting other organizations? How often are you out there initiating conversations with other newsrooms, showing up for other newsrooms events, right? I try to go to, within reason, to as many different events as possible, as many different things as possible. I do try to donate to as many different things as possible on a lower level. Now, if Joanna is having a fundraiser and I give $20 to her fundraiser, I then have a fundraiser. Joanna looks at mine and says, ah, crap, I got to donate $20 to his. Here's the best part. It doesn't come in through our donation system as Joanna $20 out of guilt. It just says Joanna $20. How often are we out there supporting others in their work? They then in turn come back and support us. Starting from a place of, why aren't people coming to me? I'm always starting from a place of, how often are we out there supporting what other people do? I do try to say yes to as many different things as possible without being cognizant of burnout, being aware of my narrative thread, all those different pieces, because I don't know where some things are going to lead, right? This was an easy yes to me to do this presentation because I love talking about this. I love meeting new colleagues. I love more people finding out about the Buckeye Flame. This was an easy yes. Sometimes I'm not always exactly sure where it's going to lead, but if it's on brand for me, I did something at, thank you. I did something at American Greetings. Their corporate headquarters are here in Cleveland. And I went and spoke about shameless self-promotion to American Greetings and the greeting card company. And I told them the first slide was, again, me at my bar mitzvah, but it was me and my mom, because it is my mom's dream. This is not a joke. It doesn't matter what I've accomplished in my life. I told the group this. My mom's only goal is for me to write greeting cards. That's what she feels I am most suited to do. And so I made that joke and I kept going, even though it's 100% true. And at the end of the presentation, a woman came up to me and said, great seeing you, Nina. A woman came up to me and said, I want to make your mother's dreams come true. And they gave me a contract to write one greeting card for American Greetings. So now there's one greeting card that I've created. And my mom is now happy, or she was for like a week. I try to say yes to stuff that's within reason for me because I don't know exactly where it's going to lead. This used to have a cuss word on it. I'll keep it clean for you all, but I am in shock at how often we are giving away our services for free. How often we are being asked to promote something, to do something for another, a nonprofit organization without any type of compensation. This applies on a couple different levels. I talk to students a lot, and so there's one group of students at the Cleveland Institute of Art who I think are the most exploited students I've ever encountered in my career. They are being asked 24/7 by different organizations, companies, businesses, nonprofits to design a logo or to do something arty for them. And they're just told, yeah, you're not going to be paid for it, but it's great exposure. That is a horrible model, right? I just had this conversation this morning because we are starting a project with influencers, and a local influencer who seems amazing said, I'm going to create these reels for you. Obviously, I know you can't pay me, but I'm doing it for the exposure. I'm like, no, no, no. That's exploitive. And we're not doing that, right? It's really important for our ecosystem to make sure that we're being compensated for our work. Now, maybe it's not a piece of sponsored content. Maybe it's not something that people can pay us for, but maybe we're saying, like a nonprofit saying, is there any way you can do an article on this sponsored content? I can only pay you like $50, right? And sponsored content usually costs a lot more with the Buckeye Flame. I'll say, that's totally cool. Can you just, in your next newsletter, put a shout out to subscribe to the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom? That's a way of getting compensated that works just fine for us. I will also say, and I don't talk about this nearly enough, this also applies to when we are searching for new employees at our newsrooms. I'm appalled at how much we are asking applicants to do without compensating them. So for the Buckeye Flame, yes, we do have them do a writing assignment, but we pay them for that writing assignment for the finalists of the search. So it's really important that we establish the ecosystem in that way. Word of mouth is one of your best friends. If people are talking about your newsroom, your product, whatever it is, when you are not in the room, that is the greatest thing that could happen. I say a lot. There's a colleague of mine here in Cleveland. Her name is Shayna Black. In addition to her last name being Black, she also is a Black woman. She grew up in Cleveland listening to R&B stations, and she only heard about certain events in Cleveland. And one day she switched it to a top 40 really white run station, and she heard about entirely different events in Cleveland. And so she started going to the entirely different events, and promoters started approaching her at these events saying, wait a second, can you bring your friends to my event? And from that, she launched Black Girl Media, which is a force to be reckoned with here in Cleveland. Shayna told me that story maybe 11 years ago. Shayna is legit not in this Zoom right now. And yet I'm talking about Black Girl Media here in Cleveland without her here because her elevator pitch is tight. You want people talking about you when you're not there. That's the best self-promotion. You don't even have to be shameless. You're not there, right? But that won't happen unless your elevator pitch is tight and people can repeat it and they quickly, clearly, concisely, compellingly get it, right? You know who I don't talk about? The people who say, I can do anything. I can do anything. Okay, I'm sure you can, but then I'm probably going to recommend you for nothing because I don't even know where to recommend you. So it's okay to carve out your lane in the shameless self-promotion cycle. It's okay to be authentic in that way and to be specific. I'm never going to say the Buckeye Flame is for everybody. It's not. I understand that. I do think that everyone has, yes, so much. Black Girl CLE is amazing. I do think that everyone has amazing things to learn from the Buckeye Flame, but I know that primarily we start with that our audience are the 557,000 LGBTQ plus adults in Ohio. And then we branch off from there. I will also say that word of mouth can also work in a very bad way. We are a small ecosystem, friends. And so I was just so frustrated with this other nonprofit newsroom. And I went off, like I was in a very small setting and I just said something and I'm like, oh, it's so frustrating. And this other woman in there said, oh, yeah, my wife's on the board there. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't know you were a lesbian, right? Like I'm trying to pivot to something completely different when in fact, we have to be really careful about word of mouth. It does get back to folks. And we are a small group. And we've seen this. We've seen this at conferences. There are things that we want to go off on. How can we do that in a way that doesn't come back and haunt our own newsroom? New slide. You just don't lie. Stray away from saying anytime we publish an article saying someone was the first to do something, I can guarantee you that within 3 hours, someone else writes us and say, I was the first to do that. If you say you're the only, someone else is going to write you and say, we do that as well. There are ways to be careful. The Buckeye Flame employs, until someone tells me I'm lying, and I will stop saying it, the Buckeye Flame employs the only rural LGBTQ plus beat reporter in the world. He just walked right by me right there, right? But I'm leaving room for that someone might say, what are you talking about? Our newsroom has a rural LGBTQ plus beat reporter, right? So you want to be really careful about firsts and onlys because they can come back to haunt you in shameless self-promotion. They really can. Just even a small disclaimer of that we know about, or we want to hear about if you do this, something like that. It's okay to not be the first and to not be the only as long as you are carving out your own unique space. Timing is a big piece of doing shameless self-promotion. So while I tell people go to as many things as possible, say yes to as many things as possible, that does not mean taking up space. I use this example a lot. If folks will recall, like 6 or so years ago, there were those horrific murders of Asian American Pacific Islander women down in Atlanta, and many cities had a Stop Asia Hate rally, Asian Hate rally, and we had one here in Cleveland as well. And I went to the Stop Asian Hate rally, right? Because I'm there to support other people, super on brand for who I am and what the Buckeye Flame does. So we went. And there was a dude walking around signing people up for climate justice work. Not only am I not signing your clipboard, sir, I'm now against the climate. Like I'm not for the climate anymore, right? You have to be really careful to not take up space where you shouldn't be taking up space. That includes any Q&A we have ever seen at any event ever where there is nary a question mark to be found in what the person is going up to the mic to say, right? I actually invented a condition for this because I need to give people an out. I call it OPD. It's optical periphery disorder. It's not in the DSM yet, but I'll get it there. I truly have to believe sometimes that folks physically can't see all the people around them, and that's why they're taking up that much space, because I've been shocked at how people dominate spaces that aren't theirs. To be really, really careful about timing. Gratitude is a big deal. I really do think a lot of the success of certainly my own personal success and the success of the Buckeye Flame is because we are rooted in gratitude. We are genuinely and authentically appreciative when people reach out to us, when people approach us at a table at Pride. It just floors us every time, and we express that appreciation back to them. That means that when someone donates, it's not, first of all, I'm not us, right? All of us on this Zoom send an automatic email at least, but it should not surprise you that there are many nonprofits that are really not acknowledging their donors and not sending something back. So at the very least, there needs to be something automatic, but we then send something further, right? And it is more personalized, and we're expressing that appreciation. We have a way of people submitting story ideas on the site. Well, every time someone submits a story idea, they do get a response. It's not, we're going to print it or we're going to pursue that, but they do get a response thanking them. We also have a Steal Our Stories tab where we let our work, it's free to republish. There are really no barriers. There's nothing you need to report back to us. And then when I see that people do that, I do reach out and say, hey, by the way, thank you so much for actually acknowledging that that reporting came from us. And it goes a really long way. So being rooted in gratitude really helps with shameless self-promotion. And finally, it's all about not wasting an opportunity. If you're in front of a group, you're not a mind reader. Sometimes we go in and decide, well, this isn't a group that's going to it's going to give donations. First of all, you don't know that. This isn't a group that's going to download a podcast. You don't know that. And maybe they're not, but their niece is one of the biggest podcasters out there. This is not an Ohio group, so there's not going to be anyone who donates. You don't know that their son is a queer pastor here in Ohio who just said to them, gosh, I have way too much money and I don't know where to spend it. Do you know where I should donate? Right? You have no idea. And so don't decide beforehand that you're going to leave off the donation slide, that you're going to leave off the subscription slide. And a lot of us are, I know, like I said earlier about knowing your audience. I do think there are different things you can say, but don't decide in advance that certain verbs are just not going to apply to that audience. So as I say that, I will also say, right, this is us. This is the Buckeye Flame. If you're not following us, that's our handle on social media. It's the Buckeye Flame. I open this door happily to you all. If you want me to look at your elevator pitch, send it to me. I'm super easy to get a hold of. I'm telling you in advance, it's too long because I've never received one that wasn't. If you are in a position, we are celebrating our 6th birthday. We are a scrappy queer nonprofit newsroom, constantly punching above our weight and having ginormous impact. So if you or someone you know might be inclined to donate us, I cannot tell you how much that helps us. 90% of the money that we get goes, the money that we raise goes towards writers. That is our biggest expense. And if you want to subscribe to see how we do our newsletter at 7:15 a.m. on Thursday mornings, there you go. That also connects with the don't lie piece. I tell people when they come up to our table at a Pride Festival, you will get one email from us on Thursdays. If we then start sending 4 or 5 a week without notice, you have destroyed your authenticity and the trust that you built. And the shameless self-promotion does not work. Yes, it worked for you to get that person signed up, but it does not retain them. My partner and I need a new front door on our house, and I signed up for a local company for a quote, and I wasn't able to take their call the first day. They have called 7 times every single day for the past 5 days, which is not what the website said. They said they would reach out once, to the point where I finally did this morning say, you have to stop, right? I'm sure they do great work, but I'm not going to use them now. That trust is huge. Okay. I didn't leave a lot of time for your questions because I want to just get as much content out there as possible. I will do some really quick hits if you are interested. But get in touch with me. We're so easy to get in touch with. And send me your elevator pitch or any follow-up questions that you have. And I am telling you in advance, I'm going to thank you for being here because I am appreciative, as I'm appreciative to Lenfest. And I will try to be as helpful as I can be. Well, that's it for me. I hope that was helpful, friends.